Walking through modern-day Cramlington, it's hard to imagine the area's transformation over the past century. What is now a large residential town was once a small rural village with roots stretching back to the Viking era. The name, Cramlington, likely derives from a Viking ruler named Cramel, combined with ing and tun, meaning a family stronghold. After the Norman conquest, the land passed through noble hands, from Nicholas de Grenville to the Gugy family, lords of Jesmond. The earliest written record of the town dates back to 1135 in a fee register that is still referenced today. For centuries, Cramlington thrived as an agricultural village. In 1270, King Henry III granted permission to hold a weekly market, and by 1811 the population was just 280. Everything changed in the 19th century with the rise of the coal industry. Though coal had been mined in the area since the 13th century, the Industrial Revolution brought large-scale mining, with the Cramlington Coal Company founded in 1825. Mines sprang up, attracting workers and prompting the development of housing estates, many of which are still named after the mines. One of the earliest such developments housed workers along Mayfield Avenue. This boom led to explosive growth. By 1921, Cramlington's population had surged to over 8,500. The town became heavily reliant on mining, and events like the post-World War I wage cuts and failed general strike signalled the slow decline of the industry. By the 1960s, all mines had closed. In response, Cramlington was designated a new town in the 1960s. A £60 million development plan aimed to accommodate 40,000 residents, and over 2 decades, the town was reshaped. With its close proximity to Newcastle, Cramlington evolved into a commuter hub. Today, it's home to over 28,000 people, a town steeped in history, yet entirely transformed. Until the 1970s, the site now used as a car park in Cramlington was a bustling hub of shops, workshops and homes, many operated by the Cramlington Cooperative Co-op Society. Established in 1861, the Cramlington Co-op quickly expanded to surrounding pit villages, offering a range of goods and services. Its first branch opened in Shank House in 1874, followed by the development of a larger complex at Lowmain Place in the 1880s. This included shops, offices, and even a slaughterhouse. In 1885, the co-op built its own gasworks, introducing gas lighting to the village. The co-op became central to village life. Male shop assistants, trained through lengthy apprenticeships, took pride in their skillful packaging. Goods were sold loose, weighed, and wrapped in brown paper or newspaper cones. Before supermarkets, residents placed orders through a travelling grocer and received deliveries at home. Initially, the co-op faced resistance from local shopkeepers, who held exclusive rights to trade within certain village boundaries, forcing the co-op to begin operations in Cramlington village. Still, it grew rapidly, despite setbacks like unsuccessful tailoring departments and limited accessibility due to its no-credit policy. By the 1960s, changing consumer habits and the rise of supermarkets led to a decline in co-op dominance. In 1973, the co-op relocated to Dudley Court in the new Cramlington shopping centre, leaving the original site behind. It was later grassed over for community events and eventually converted into a car park for the Sainsbury's development in the late 1990s. Though no longer standing, the co-op buildings were once a vital part of daily life, remembered fondly by older residents who passed through the iconic Co-op Arch to reach their homes in Sunnyside. One of Cramlington's most prominent landmarks is Cramlington Hall. Originally, its extensive gardens stretched across both sides of what is now Dudley Road. Early Ordnance Survey maps depict this area as a formal walled garden with a central pathway. Nestled in the heart of modern Cramlington, yet hidden from view, stands a historic mansion dating back 800 years. A manor house has existed here since the 12th century, but the current Palladian-style mansion was built in the mid-18th century by John Lawson of West Cramlington. Despite its central location, many locals are unaware of its presence. John Lawson lived there until his death in 1791, passing the estate to his uncle's great-nephew, Adam Cardinal Lawson, a Scottish surgeon and historian. After his son's childless death, the Taylor family, local coal miners, acquired the property in 1833, using it for colliery managers' housing or rental property. At one point, it even served as a dentist's surgery. By 1887, the mansion was reported as abandoned and deteriorating, and by 1889 it had been divided into 3 tenements, a division that remains today. Despite this, the exterior retains its original grandeur. Part of its gardens was sold in the 19th century to Mr. Taylor, who transformed them into a market garden, later owned by the Thompson family. In the 1970s, the land was redeveloped into Dudley Court, East Square, and car parks, now part of Manor Walks. The Thompson family home was also demolished, but its replacement, New Garden House, still stands on Station Road. The name Smithy Square, now a car park, is a lasting tribute to a once essential trade that has vanished from modern life. In the past, blacksmiths played a crucial role in Cramlington's mining pits and villages, with at least one smithy in each location. Late 19th century maps clearly mark their presence across the area. One of the last remnants of Cramlington's rural character was its village smithy, which operated as a blacksmith and farrier until its demolition in 1974. It stood near the west boundary of the churchyard, where the car park is today. By 1950, the trade was already in decline. A newspaper article reported that only 3 blacksmiths remained in the Seaton Valley district, with Bob Turnbull working at this very smithy. He shoed about 6 horses a week and supplemented his income by repairing agricultural tools. Though the smithy has been gone for over 45 years, its legacy lives on in the name Smithy Square. The long sandstone building along Long Main Place was once Cramlington's village school. Formal education in the village began in 1811, when the Church of England established a small school next to St Nicholas Church. Before this, education was largely run by private enterprises. The school, consisting of 2 classrooms, was led by headmaster Mr. Waddle. In the 1860s, the school and nearby cottages were demolished to make way for the new St Nicholas Church, and a replacement school was built at its current location. This school remained in use until 1909, when the new council school, later Parkside Middle School, opened. The old building then served as the parish hall. During World War I, in 1915, the hall was requisitioned by the army and used as a wartime billet for the Duke of Cornwall's light infantry. In 1969, the building was sold to William Leach Builders, who converted it into 4 business units, marking its transition from an educational institution to a commercial space. This charming building in Cramlington, now housing a business, once served as the village's Wesleyan Methodist chapel. Though alterations, particularly to the windows, have occurred over time, its original chapel-like design remains evident. Wesleyan Methodism arrived relatively late in Cramlington, stemming from the Blythe circuit, though John Wesley had preached nearby in Plessey years earlier. Around 1880, a growing congregation began meeting in a private home before seeking a dedicated space. They approached Sir Matthew White Ridley, the local landowner and supporter of moral community ventures, who granted a 63-year lease for a nominal rent on a site opposite the Travellers' Rest pub. Fundraising efforts allowed donors of £5, around £5,000 of today's money, or more, to have their names inscribed on memorial stones, while young fundraisers could earn their names on bricks. Designed in a Gothic style by architect S.S. Lish of Newcastle, the chapel featured a steeply pitched roof, arched windows along the roadside, and a main entrance on the east end. Although plans for an attached school were abandoned, the chapel was completed with its foundation stone laid by Lady Ridley in 1881. Today, despite its varied later uses, the building retains much of its historic appearance and charm. The pub, beside which you stand, takes its name from a stately home located far beyond the town itself. The exact origin of the name remains uncertain, though a village named Blagdon has existed in Cumbria for over 1,000 years. Blagdon Hall and its estate have been owned by the White Ridley family since 1698. The current Viscount Ridley is science writer and hereditary peer Matt Ridley. The original house was built between 1720 and 1752 by Matthew White and his son Sir Matthew White. Through marriage, the estate passed to the Ridley family, with Matthew White Ridley becoming the second baronet. In the 19th century, the house was expanded by architects John Dobson and Ignatius Bonomi, though parts were removed after a 1944 fire. The estate includes Shotton Surface Mine and Northumberlandia, a massive land sculpture made from mining waste. The Ridley family is responsible for what is referred to as the housing revolution. Since the 1960s, South East Northumberland has seen a dramatic shift from farmland and industrial land to vast housing estates, driven largely by Viscount Ridley. Historically, home ownership was rare in the North East, with most housing provided by coal companies or councils. Buying a home required resources and knowledge most working-class families lacked. However, Ridley, uniquely positioned as a powerful landowner and chairman of several key institutions, including Northumberland County Council, Northern Rock and Barclays, helped engineer a solution. Through coordinated infrastructure planning, mortgage innovation, and targeted marketing, Ridley made home ownership accessible, transforming both the region's landscape and working-class life. The old bricked-up building on School Lane is the last surviving remnant of the once thriving educational site in Cramlington. It was not part of the school, though, serving as the Masonic Hall. Originally built in 1909 for £10,000, over £5 million today, Parkside Middle School served the community until its closure in 2008. The stone school it replaced, dating from 1853, was converted into a parish hall. The new school was officially opened by Sir Francis Blake, Deputy Lieutenant of Northumberland. Initially a secondary modern school, Parkside catered to students who did not pass the 11+. The school faced various disruptions, including being occupied by the British Army during World War I, air raid precautions during Zeppelin threats, and reduced attendance during the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. King Edward VIII, then Prince of Wales, visited in 1921. Poverty during the 1926 general strike affected students, and World War II saw further strain as part of the school became a military hospital. Reopened as Cramlington Modern School in 1945, it underwent expansion, including a gym, hall, and new classrooms. By the 1990s, a new Year 5 block replaced old huts. The school closed in 2008, ending 99 years of education. Demolished in 2014, the site was redeveloped into a housing estate, with Blake Drive named in honour of Sir Francis Blake. The pub you see today, with its distinctive round dining hall, once formed part of Middle Farm, one of the original 3 farms at the heart of Cramlington village, alongside East and West farms. In the 18th century, Cramlington had 12 small farms, 3 of which stood at the village centre. While most farm buildings have vanished or been repurposed, some remnants remain in local street names like East Farm Terrace and West Farm Court. Until the 20th century, farming here was labour-intensive, with small plots and the need to leave fields fallow. However, with the introduction of crop rotation, growing wheat, barley, turnips, and clover in sequence, productivity improved. Turnips provided animal forage, while clover enriched the soil with nitrates, eliminating the need for fallow periods. After World War I, when many horses were lost to military service, the government supplied 5,000 Ford tractors to farms across the country, further modernising agricultural practices and increasing yields. The original Middle farmhouse still survives as a private residence, but the surrounding 18th century farm buildings were converted into a pub. A standout feature is the Gin Gang, a hexagonal, conical-roofed building once powered by a horse to drive threshing machinery. Today, it serves as the pub's round dining hall. When the new town development began in the 1960s, the village's central farms were closed and their land redeveloped into housing estates, but Middle Farm lives on in this unique and atmospheric venue. Standing proudly on the village green, the Cramlington War Memorial is one of the town's most significant landmarks. The monument features a statue of St. George in armour, head bowed, atop a granite column with an octagonal base. War memorials in England first appeared after the Boer War, but the sheer loss of life in World War I led to a surge in public demand for commemorative monuments. In 1919, Cramlington Council initiated discussions about a central war memorial, following similar efforts in Hertford and Shank House. After 2 years of fundraising, a committee selected the village green as the location, with Margaret Wrightson of Neasham Hall commissioned to design the memorial. Her family were prominent coal owners, and she would later become one of the last surviving World War I memorial sculptors, living until 1976. The memorial was unveiled on 22nd of September 1922 in front of 5,000 to 6,000 spectators. It originally bore the names of 152 local men who perished in World War I, with 55 more added after World War II. Later, 2 additional names were inscribed to honour those lost in post-1945 conflicts. Today, the Cramlington War Memorial remains a powerful tribute to the community's fallen heroes, standing as a lasting symbol of remembrance and sacrifice. The most prominent structure in the village is St. Nicholas Church, originally built as a chapel of ease for St. Nicholas in Newcastle. The earliest records mention John the Clerk of Cramlington, who served as chaplain until his death in 1180. The original chapel, constructed alongside the Manor Hall in the 12th century, was later described in 1665 as a barn-like structure with thick stone walls and round-headed windows. A new chapel replaced it, incorporating the chancery arch from the original building. However, with the population surging from 346 in 1821 to 2,634 by 1841, the small church with seating for only 130 people became inadequate. In 1856, Sir Matthew White Ridley commissioned architect John Dobson to design a new church. The foundation stone was laid in 1865, and the church was consecrated in 1868. Today, the church's 22-metre tower is a local landmark. Inside, the black oak communion table, salvage from the River Blythe, was gifted by Sir Matthew Ridley, while the oak pulpit, crafted by Morpeth sculptor Mr. Stafford, adds to the church's historical charm. In 1873, a clock and 6 bells were installed in the tower in memory of Edward Potter of Cramlington House. One fascinating artefact inside the church is a funeral hatchment for Adam de Cardinal Lawson, died 1820. Originally found in disrepair, it was restored by Gateshead Technical College students. The heraldic shield follows strict symbolism, signifying Adam's gentlemanly status and his surviving wife. Old maps of the old village show that the building opposite St Nicholas Church, from its east, was the Mechanics' Institute. The house on the corner of Blagden Terrace and Southview Place has a stone plaque over the entrance door confirming it was that. In 1855, Hugh Taylor Esquire, owner of West Cramlington Pit and husband to Mary Taylor of Cramlington Hall, donated 67 books to the West Cramlington Colliery Mechanics' Institute, aligning with a common practice of the time where philanthropic mine owners supported adult education through such institutes. These institutes aimed to improve workers' education, theoretically benefiting the collieries, but their close ties to management often made them unpopular with miners. Cramlington Colliery, known for its frequent industrial disputes, saw 21 strikes in 20 years. By 1873, a reporter described the reading room as dingy and foul-smelling, housed alongside the colliery stables, and reported it was poorly attended. The institute seems to have lapsed until being revived in 1894, likely due to the influence of Matthew White Ridley, a prominent local industrialist whose wife opened the new Mechanics' Institute in Cramlington. Over time, Mechanics' Institutes shifted from purely educational purposes to social and recreational roles, with amenities like billiard tables being introduced. Architecturally, the Institute building stood out, set back from the street, with distinctive brickwork and unique double-sash windows, suggesting professional architectural input. However, like many such institutions, it declined after World War I, overtaken by miners' welfare and workingmen's clubs. Alongside this institute, several of the pits established their own similar facilities, traces of which can still be seen on old maps. Cramlington's original burial ground was located at St Nicholas Church, serving the community since the church's foundation. However, with the village's population growing rapidly in the 19th century, driven by the expansion of local collieries, there arose a need for an additional chapel and cemetery, particularly to serve residents in East Cramlington. Mayfield Cemetery was established to meet this need and has since become an important part of the town's heritage. The site features a variety of grave markers and memorials, each telling a story of the individuals buried there and offering a glimpse into the social history of the community. Cemeteries like Mayfield are not only places of rest, but also spaces for reflection, remembrance, and connection. They allow families to honour their ancestors and give the wider community an opportunity to reflect on the lives that help shape the town. Mayfield's significance is also tied to Cramlington's broader history, its industrial roots and evolution into a modern town. Among its graves are 17 Commonwealth war burials, 7 from the First World War and 10 from the Second, serving as poignant reminders of the town's contributions and sacrifices in times of conflict. This small cul-de-sac, with 2 new houses, occupies what once was a very special place in Cramlington. Inside this area stood an infectious diseases hospital, as shown in the 1922 map. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this relatively remote location near High Pit made it an ideal site for an isolation hospital. Though Cramlington Village, Shank House, East and West Cramlington were nearby, they were far enough away to safely separate the sick from the general population. Isolation hospitals had existed since medieval times, such as the Leprosy Hospital at New Biggin by the sea, but rising urban overcrowding and outbreaks of diseases like cholera, typhus, and scarlet fever prompted action. The Public Health Act of 1875 required local authorities to provide dedicated hospitals for infectious diseases, enforcing the separation of patients, advance readiness, and disease-specific wards. Cramlington's Isolation Hospital was built by the Cramlington Coal Company and followed a typical design: 2 small wards, 1 male, 1 female, with 5 beds each, adaptable for different infections. Some years, the hospital wasn't used at all. In others, it admitted a handful of patients. In 1903, it came under the Urban District Council, which praised it for helping contain a smallpox outbreak. Though marked on maps until World War II, it disappeared from official medical lists by 1925. After the war, the building became a Salvation Army Hall until the 1960s, before being replaced by modern bungalows. You are standing beside a striking war mural that captures the spirit of Cramlington's coal mining heritage. This vibrant artwork, located on High Pit Road, commemorates the life and history of a colliery village with imagery of a miner's lamp and surrounding roses, a tribute to the area's industrial past. High Pit, the alternative name for Anne, Annie or Anpit, as it is sometimes incorrectly named on some maps and mining correspondence, was one of the region's earliest deep coal mines, established around 1825. Over time, several colliery villages sprang up around mineheads, including Shank House, East and West Cramlington, and East Hertford. By the late 19th century, coal mining had become central to local life. In 1896, Cramlington Pit employed over 500 workers, and its workforce expanded further under Hartley Main Collieries Limited in 1930. As with many communities in the northern coalfields, the 20th century brought a decline in coal production, and Cramlington faced significant economic and social changes. Today, High Pit is part of modern Cramlington Town, but remnants of its colliery roots remain visible in street layouts and architecture. The mural was created by Frank Stiles, a renowned street artist known for blending realism and abstraction. Commissioned to collaborate with local schools, Stiles worked alongside students and fellow artist Dan Weatheritt to bring local history to life through public art. Stiles' technique combines freehand spray painting with classical oil painting principles, focusing on tone, depth, and warmth to give realism to his large-scale works. This mural stands not only as a work of art, but as a powerful visual reminder of the area's proud mining legacy. Barely changed since the day they were built, this distinct group of 10 cottages beside the Spine Road in East Cramlington, often draws comparisons to almshouses, but in Northumberland, the correct term is aged miners' cottages. Several of the doorways bear stone plaques, hinting at their unique history and purpose. These cottages stand as a powerful reminder of a time when the mining community took care of its own. Built in 1906, the cottages were part of a vital initiative by the Northumberland Aged Mine Workers Homes Association to provide secure housing for retired miners. While colliery companies often supplied free housing to their workforce, miners were required to vacate these homes upon retirement, which could lead to hardship in the days before pensions. To counter this, miners paid a small weekly levy from their wages to fund cottages for those no longer eligible for colliery housing. The Cramlington cottages were the first to be built directly by the association, with plans approved in December 1905. The foundation stone was laid in January 1906 before a crowd of 700. The land was provided at minimal cost, and architect T. Tulip of Choppington designed the homes. These were the 8th such set in the county. Allocation was done by ballot, with 127 applications for the 10 homes. A festive opening ceremony in 1906, supported by the Cramlington Cooperative Society and the Dudley Brass Band, celebrated the community spirit behind this lasting legacy. The grey-coloured building looks rather out of place in this mostly residential street. However, it has an interesting history. Before television transformed entertainment, the local cinema was a vital escape for pit village communities like Cramlington. For 50 years, one small building served as the town's only picture house, offering residents a window to the wider world. Built in 1911 by Mr. J. Belshaw on Front Street in Klondike, it opened as the King George Picture Hall. The very first ticket went to 82-year-old Thomas Appleby. With a modest 480 seats, the cinema became a cornerstone of local life. A different film was shown each night, and many children would attend 2 or 3 times a week if they could afford it. The Saturday afternoon matinee, costing just 2 pence, was especially popular, not only with kids, but with parents who cherished a quiet afternoon at home. During the First World War, the building was used for concerts supporting the war effort. By the time of the Second World War, it had been renamed the Rex Cinema. Although it closed in the 1960s, the building remains in use today, a relic of a time when going to the pictures was more than entertainment. It was an essential part of community life and a treasured weekly ritual. The Lanercost Park housing estate now stands on land that was once part of Cramlington Colliery. Its central building, Cramlington House, served as the headquarters for the mining operation. Cramlington House is often attributed to Adam Lawson, who inherited the Cramlington estate in the early 19th century, but evidence suggests it was more likely built around 1850 by the Cramlington Coal Company as a residence and office for its managing director, Edward Potter. It was common for coal companies to provide such homes for their senior staff, often known as viewers or agents. Edward's son William succeeded him in 1867, followed by his own son, Edward Orborne Potter, until 1890. The house then passed to other managing directors, including John Morrison and later T.O. Wood, who lived there at least until 1925. After nationalisation of the coal industry in 1946, the house became the local NCB headquarters, avoiding the demolition that befell many similar buildings. It remained in use until the 1960s, when pit closures made it redundant. In 1969, the house and gardens were sold off, and the site was redeveloped into the Lanercost Park estate. Ironically, while the elegant house was demolished, the plain 1960s office blocks in its garden were preserved and converted into flats. The estate was marketed in the 1970s as an executive estate, featuring boxy houses with flat, sloped roofs and wood cladding. Today, the only remnant of Cramlington House is its former gatehouse, now hidden behind tall hedges. The only surviving trace of the building is Potter Lane, named after the family who resided there the longest. As you walk through the distinctive layout of streets between Cramlington Village and the former colliery, you're in an area once known as Klondike. This was the first housing development built specifically for miners working in the local pits. Unlike the traditional rent-free pit houses typically provided by coal companies, the Cramlington Coal Company introduced a new housing model in 1897 to address the shortage of accommodation and reduce overcrowding. Using land previously occupied by a brickfield near High Pit, the company offered plots on 99-year leases to private builders. These builders, in turn, constructed homes to rent to miners. Though initially sceptical about paying rent for housing, miners remembered the harsh evictions during the 1864 strike and recognised that paying rent offered a measure of security and independence from the coal company. The plan included 170 houses across 4 streets: Storey, Ridley, Hastings and Percy, each named after prominent Northumbrian landowners. The homes typically featured a kitchen, front room, walk-in pantry and an attic bedroom. Outdoor amenities included a washhouse and an earth closet toilet. Some single-storey homes echoed the design seen in Scottish pit villages, with entire families living in one room. The high demand for housing made this development a lucrative opportunity, with local newspapers by 1902 dubbing the area Klondike, a nod to the famous gold rush in Klondike, Canada, reflecting the perceived potential to profit from the housing boom. Today, the name lives on as a reminder of Cramlington's unique industrial and social heritage. On the eastern side of Alexandra Park is a new playground named Annie's Playground. Named in memory of Annie Green, a young girl from West Cramlington, who grew up near the coal heaps and tragically died during a national outbreak of rheumatic fever in the 1930s. Following collaboration between Cramlington U3A Local History Group, Cramlington Town Council and local historians, the playground was formally opened by Annie's nephew, Mr. Brian Green, on the 9th of May 2022. Today, the playground stands not only as a tribute to Annie Green, but as a memorial to all the Cramlington children from an earlier age, whose lives were blighted and lost through diseases which can now be prevented. Annie's Playground is located in a much transformed green space, where children of Annie's age can enjoy themselves in safety. The Great Strike of 1926 was a turning point for Cramlington, reflecting nationwide tensions in the coal industry after World War I. Coal exports had declined, productivity fell, and mine owners cut wages by 37.5% from £6 a week to £3.18, while increasing hours. In response, the TUC called a general strike on 4th of May, supported by 1.7 million workers. The government, anticipating unrest, had formed the Organisation for the Maintenance of Supplies, OMS, to keep order and minimise the impact of the strike on the general public. On 12th of May, the strike ended without guarantees for strikers. On the long run, the strike led to laws banning general strikes and marked Britain's permanent decline in global coal trade dominance. Locally, the strike led striking miners on the 10th of May in Northumberland to remove a rail from the Edinburgh to London main line, aiming to sabotage a coal train driven by strike breakers. However, the train that arrived was a passenger service using carriages from the Flying Scotsman, hauled by locomotive number 2565 Merryhampton. Fortunately, the volunteer driver had been warned and slowed the train, limiting the impact. The engine and 5 carriages derailed, with 281 passengers aboard, but there were no fatalities, only 1 minor foot injury and some shock and bruises. 8 Cramlington miners were arrested and sentenced to up to 8 years in prison, made examples of for their actions. However, public outcry from trade union members, politicians, and even the judiciary led to their early release. They returned home to Cramlington as celebrated heroes. This open space, just a short distance from the village centre, tells a story that perfectly reflects the transformation of the town. As the Cramlington New Town residential development expanded southward, it began to encroach upon the derelict remains of the former West Cramlington colliery. By 1968, the 30-acre site was a wasteland, scattered with abandoned colliery buildings, a disused power station, a public house, the many workers' houses, and the remnants of 2 pit heaps. The area had lain unused for over 30 years, save for learner drivers practising on the decaying roads, and a short-lived post-World War II attempt to grow rosehips to combat a vitamin C shortage. Recognising the need for green space in the growing town, Northumberland County Council designated the site as a recreational area for the new community. Their vision included tennis courts, an all-weather football pitch, play zones for children of different ages, and even a sledging slope sculpted from one of the former pit heaps. Work began in 1969 with extensive site clearance and landscaping. Since opening, the park has served as a vital green lung for generations of local children and families. Developed in the 1970s, the park features a contemporary layout with large open spaces, football pitches, a bowling green, pavilion, children's play areas, a multi-use games area, and a skate park, offering a wide range of leisure activities for the expanding population. Still in use today, the primitive Methodist chapel in Cramlington, known locally as the Welcome, is a rare survivor from the days when faith and coal shaped daily life. Built in 1893, its modest red brick design may lack the grandeur of the nearby Wesleyan chapel, but it remains a proud symbol of a once vital tradition. In most pit villages, Methodism thrived, often with multiple chapels, Wesleyan, Primitive, and occasionally Independent Methodist, all serving distinct branches of the faith. These chapels were not just places of worship, but also centres of learning, discussion, and community identity. The chapel's historical significance is highlighted in the life of Charles Fenwick, a Cramlington-born miner who began working underground at the age of 9. A dedicated lay preacher at the Welcome, Fenwick eventually entered politics, becoming Wansbeck 1st MP in 1885, backed by the Miners' Union. His journey reflected the strong ties between Methodism and early trade unionism, a powerful alliance in the fight for workers' rights. Looking back on his life, Fenwick credited the church as a guiding force, saying, "If my life has been in any degree a success, I owe it all to the providence of God and my early and continued connection with the primitive Methodist Church." Nelson Avenue, now a peaceful residential street, once lay at the heart of a vibrant hub of aviation and industry. The surrounding area, known as Nelson, was home to the Cramlington Airfield and a vast airship hangar that dramatically altered the local skyline during the First World War. The aerodrome began life in 1915 as a base for one of Britain's first home defence flying squadrons, formed in response to Zeppelin raids on the northeast. This was 3 years before the founding of the RAF, marking the site as historically significant. Initially, flimsy biplanes were housed in canvas hangars, but soon permanent structures were built, including 3 flight sheds and a cluster of huts for staff and storage. The station was active until the end of World War I and officially disbanded in 1920. After the war, aviation pioneer Connie Leithart and a former Army pilot formed the Cramlington Aircraft Company Limited. Though they flew early aircraft like the Gypsy and Simmons Spartan, the venture faltered. The Newcastle Aero Club took over in 1925, building a new hangar and hosting airshows that drew huge crowds until 1935, featuring pilots like Sir Douglas Bader. Meanwhile, the massive airship hangar built during World War I found new uses: ammunition box production, then housing a short-lived airship advertising firm, and later assembling World War II lorries from American parts. Post-war, it housed a coach builder, then a firm producing concrete lampposts for Cramlington's growing suburbs. This remarkable structure stood until 1967, a towering symbol of the town's forgotten aviation legacy.